Hello everyone, I am Pragya and in this video I will discuss about the detailed analysis of CLAT 2020 question paper done by the DiGiPPlus experts. Some of the inference done by the DiGiPPlus expert are that there was a slight change in the question paper pattern this year. This year CLAT had 150 questions as against the usual 200 questions in the previous year. The total exam duration was 120 minutes. This year, there was observed to have more comprehension question than usual. The marking scheme of this year question paper was similar as that of the previous year, where 1 mark was awarded for every correct answer. However, 0.25 marks was deducted for every wrong answer. This year, the question paper consisted of 5 sections, and in this video, I will do the thorough analysis of each and every section and each and every question. So let's begin with the section number 1. Section 1 was English, containing 6 short to medium sized comprehension passages, and each passages had 5 questions with varied length and difficulty level. This column depicts the difficulty level of each passage. Passage 1, the difficulty level varied from easy to moderate. The passage 2 was an easy passage. Passage 3 is considered to be a tough one. For passage 4, the difficulty level varied from moderate to tough. For passage 5, it was considered to be an easy passage. Passage 6, the difficulty level ranged from easy to moderate. So let's move towards the comprehensive analysis of passages in this section. So our first passage had 5 questions in it whose level of question ranged from easy to moderate. The length of the passage, as it can be seen, was medium sized, and according to the DiGiPPlus expert, the elementary knowledge of English was sufficient to solve this problem. Moving forward, we have our passage number 2, which had 5 questions, and the level of questions are considered to be the easy one. So this question lied on the scoring part. The length of the passage, as it can be seen, was a short one, and the elementary knowledge of English was sufficient to solve this problem. So this passage was definitely one of the scoring passages. Moving toward the passage number 3, it also had 5 questions, but the level of question this time was on the tougher side. The length of the passage, as it can be seen, was medium sized, and the passage was a bit tricky and complex, and a good knowledge of vocabulary and parts and figures of speech was required. This passage required undivided attention of the candidate. Moving towards the analysis of passage number 4, it also contained 5 questions, and the level of the questions ranged from moderate to tough. The length of the passage was medium, and this passage is also considered to be a tricky one, and a good knowledge of vocabulary and parts and figures of speech was required. Moving ahead, considering the third and the fourth passage to be a difficult one, this passage was one of the relief that the candidate must have experienced, because this passage was having easy questions and there were 5 questions. So this was definitely on the scoring part, and the length of the passage was medium. The analysis that has been done regarding this passage by the DiGiPPlus expert, that the elementary knowledge, the basic knowledge of English was sufficient to solve this problem. Moving towards the last passage, passage number 6 of this section, it had 5 questions whose difficulty level varied from easy to moderate, and the length of the passage was medium. According to the expert's remark, the elementary knowledge of English was sufficient to solve this problem. Section 2 was of current affair including GK. This section consisted of 7 short to medium sized passages. Passage 1 to 6 had 5 questions, whereas passage 7 had 6 questions. The difficulty level of each passage is depicted in this column. We shall further move and do the survey of each and every passage in this section. We have our first passage, which had 5 questions, and the level of the questions were varying from easy to moderate. As you can see, the passage is considered to be a short one, and according to the analysis of our experts, the current affairs of last few months were enough to solve this question. So, if the candidate would have gone to the newspaper daily, this question was considered to be on the scoring side. Moving ahead, we have our passage number 2, which also contained 5 questions, and this passage is considered to have tough questions, and the length of the passage is considered to be medium. This passage, according to the analysis of the expert, required a depth knowledge of the issue that has been discussed. But if a little bit of research was done, candidate would have surely succeeded in attempting this question. Moving ahead, we have our passage number 3, which had 5 questions, and the length of the passage was medium. This was a relief after a tough challenged passage number 2. This is considered to be an easy passage, and according to the expert, the knowledge of global affair and the current affairs of last few months was enough to solve this question. Moving ahead, we have our passage number 4. Passage number 4 had 5 questions. The level of the questions were easy. We can say it was a direct and a straightforward questions were put up. The length of the passage was medium, and the passage was completely based on the current affairs of last few months. Moving ahead, we have passage number 5, which also had 5 questions. The length of the passage was medium. This passage was ranging from moderate to tougher side of the question pattern. Now, further we have passage number 6, which had 5 questions, and the length of the passage is considered to be a short one. The level of the question varied from easy to moderate, and according to the analysis of the experts, the passage was completely based on the current affairs of last few months in relation with India and different countries. So, we have our last passage that was of medium length and considered to be a scoring one because it was one of the easiest passage, having 5 questions and completely based on the global and the national affairs of the country. This section overall do not have static GK question. So, a candidate having a habit of reading newspaper religiously would have surely attempted almost all the questions of this section. Moving ahead, we have our section number 3, that is legal reasoning, and it consisted of 8 passages. The number of questions varied as depicted in this column. The length of the passages were from short to long. The difficulty level is depicted under this column. Passage 1 is considered to be moderate. Passage 2 had a difficulty level ranging from easy to moderate. Passage 3, the difficulty level ranged from easy to moderate. Passage 4 was an easy passage. Passage 5 was considered to be moderate to tough. Passage 6 was ranging from easy to moderate under the difficulty level column, and passage number 7 was an easy passage as per the analysis of DiGiPPlus experts. Passage number 8 was considered to be a tough passage. Moving ahead, doing a comprehensive study of each and every passage, we have our passage number 1, which had 4 questions, and the level of question is considered to be moderate. The length of this passage was long, as we can see, and according to the analysis, the passage 1 required 1 or 2 times of reading to understand the legal concept that has been discussed and answer the question. Moving ahead, we have our passage number 2, which had 5 questions and the length of passage was medium. The level of the questions was from easy to moderate, and according to the analysis of the experts, passage 2 just needed to be read once and carefully, and there were straightforward questions. No extra effort were needed for this passage. Now further, we had our passage number 5, which was a long passage, and the question that has been put forward from the context of this passage was having easy to moderate level. According to the analysis, the passage was needed to be read once, and the question put forward were very straightforward and no extra effort was required to be put. Now we have our other passage, that is passage number 4, which had 5 questions. The length of the passage is considered to be medium, and the level of the question that has been put forward were ranging from easy to moderate. Again, this passage needed to be read once and carefully, and there were straightforward questions and no extra effort was required. Now our next passage is passage number 5, which had 5 questions. The length of the passage was medium. Passage was ranging from moderate to tough. Passage 5 required 1 to 2 reading for getting the legal concept to answer the questions. Moving ahead, we have our passage number 6, which had 5 questions and the level of the question ranged from easy to moderate. This passage is considered to be one of the shortest passage, and according to the analysis, this passage required to be read once and carefully, and the question asked were very straightforward and no thought process was needed to be put up. Now moving ahead, we have a passage number 7, which had 5 questions, and the level of the question that has been asked under this context were easy, and the length of the passage is considered to be medium. The questions were very straightforward and this passage needed to be read once and carefully. Moving towards the last passage of this section, passage number 8, which had 5 questions and the level of the questions were tough, and the length of the passage was medium. Passage 8 required a reading of 1 to 2 times because of the legal concept that were discussed under these passage were quite complex, and in order to answer the question, this required a thorough knowledge. Moving ahead, we have our next section, section number 4, that was of logical reasoning, and this section had 5 passages that were short-sized passages. Each passage had 5 questions. The difficulty level is depicted under this column. Between passage number 4 and 5, there were a set of 5 questions which were randomly based on a situation to test the reasoning ability of the candidate, and the difficulty level was from medium to tough. Moving ahead, passage number 1, which had 5 questions. The level of the questions were easy, and the candidate, after reading the passage really carefully, would be able to answer each and every question. No much effort was required for the same. Moving ahead, we have our passage number 2, which had 5 questions. The length of the passage is considered to be short, and the level of the question that has been put forward were moderate. The passage was easy, and the candidates just had to read it once and carefully. Now we have our passage number 3, which had 5 questions. The length of the passage under this section, all the passages. Now we have our passage number 3. The length of the passage is short, and the number of questions asked were 5. The level of the question was ranging from easy to moderate, and the passage was fairly easy to answer the question, as the questions asked were really straightforward and not much effort was required for the same. Moving ahead, we have our passage number 4, which had 5 questions. Again, this passage is considered to be a short one, and the level of the questions were ranging from easy to moderate. The passage required a thorough reading once, and not much effort was required to do the same. Moving ahead, we have our last passage of this section, passage number 5, which is having 5 questions, and the level of the questions was considered to be moderate. The length of the passage is considered to be short, and the questions put forward did not require much effort to be solved, as they were straightforward questions. And if the candidate would have come across the concepts through their preparation, this was fairly easy to answer. So now we have our final section, section number 5 of quantitative techniques of CLAT 2020 question paper. This section had 3 sets of data, and each set of data contained 5 questions. The topics covered in data set 1 was percentage and average. The topic covered in data set 2 was mensuration and unitary method. The topic covered in data set 3 was circle and triangle. The difficulty level of each data set is depicted under this column. Data set 1, the difficulty level was moderate. For data set 2, the difficulty level varied from moderate to tough. For data set 3, the difficulty level varied from moderate to tough. Moving ahead, we'll do the comprehensive survey of each and every data set. We have our data set 1, which had 5 questions, and the topics covered was percentage and average. The level of the questions put forward were moderate, and according to the analysis, fair amount of calculation was involved. So it might slow down the candidate, but it really didn't impact much if the candidate had the appropriate knowledge. Moving ahead, we have our data set number 2, which also had 5 questions. The topics covered were mensuration and unitary method. The level of the questions was ranging from medium to tough, and according to the analysis, this section had basically a more requirement of 10th grade mathematics proficiency, and if the candidate would have appropriate knowledge, he or she would have able to crack this question. Moving forward, we have our data set number 3, which had 5 questions, and the topics covered were circle and triangle. The level of the questions put forward were moderate to tough. If the candidate had the basic to moderate knowledge of circles and triangle, he or she would have able to solve this. And overall, the question paper gave a fair amount of chance to the candidate to score well in the examination. However, some of the questions were on the tougher side, which required thorough preparation and also checked the strategy of the candidate. So what's next? What are the opportunities after taking the CLAT exam? So the CLAT exam is specifically designed to test the aptitude of an individual who wishes to pursue a degree of law from prestigious national law universities. There are 22 national law universities that participate in CLAT. Through the rank that they obtain in CLAT exam, one can apply for admission to any of the 22 participating university to pursue their undergraduate degree in law. In addition to CLAT, there are other law entrance examinations like All India Law Entrance Test and Law School Admission Test India. These examinations gives the candidate an opportunity to apply in the various private law universities and some public law universities across India that are not NLUs. There are certain other law universities that grant admission purely on the basis of merit, and some private law schools conduct their own entrance examination. And if in case that one doesn't get a rank good enough to join their dream national law university through CLAT, they shouldn't lose hope. Life will give much more opportunities to let them pursue their dream of becoming a lawyer. At the end of the day, it is not the college but one's determination and hard work that will define their future in the field of law. And if you found this video helpful, do like, comment and share. And if there is anything else that you want us to make a video on, do mention it in the comment section below. And don't forget to press the subscribe button. Thank you for watching.